The auditorium at Lincoln Middle School was filled with proud parents and excited students. The afternoon sun filtered through the high windows, casting long shadows on the rows of folding chairs. My son Ethan sat in the front row, clutching his certificate as the regional science fair champion in his small hands. I watched him from the 3rd grade, my heart overflowing with pride. He spent 6 months on the renewable energy project, working late into the night in our garage, refusing to give up even when the experiments failed. I remember finding him asleep at his desk more than once, his notebook still open beside him. The other award winners sat next to Ethan, each representing months of dedication and hard work. The director had already announced 3 awards, and the audience applauded enthusiastically for each student. My sister Melissa slipped into the seat next to me, late as ever. She barely glanced up at the stage where the director was announcing the awards. Her perfume was overpowering in the small space, and she made no effort to tone down her entrance even though the ceremony was in full swing. "The crowd is awful," she whispered, without even bothering to apologize. I nodded, my eyes fixed on Ethan. His name was called. He stepped onto the stage, a little nervous, and accepted his award. The director began explaining his innovative solar panel design that had impressed the judges. That's when Melissa stood up. She strode straight down the aisle, her heels clacking on the wooden floor. Before anyone could stop her, she snatched the microphone from the director's hand. "Let's be realistic." Melissa's voice boomed through the speakers. "He only won because his competitors were weak this year." Silence fell over the hall. All heads turned. Ethan froze on stage, his face hardening. Melissa continued, unconcerned or indifferent. "I mean, a solar panel project that's been done 1,000 times. There's nothing innovative about it." My hands instinctively gripped the armrest, but I kept a neutral expression. My parents, seated in the front rows, turned around. Dad chuckled softly, while Mom wore that familiar wry smile. "She's just being honest," Mom said aloud. "Someone has to keep these kids grounded." Dad nodded. "We can't let them get carried away by participation awards." The director gently retrieved the microphone, but the damage was done. Ethan's eyes met mine and they were filled with tears. I gave him a small smile and nodded. Then he stumbled off the stage as the next award was announced. After the party ended, Melissa cornered me in the parking lot. "Don't look at me like that, Diane," she said, adjusting her designer handbag. "I did Ethan a favor. Real life doesn't reward mediocre work." I said calmly. His project was chosen from among 200 entries. "Whatever." She waved her hand dismissively. "Hey, have you thought about my suggestion? The investment I mentioned last month." 3 weeks ago, Melissa pitched her new startup, a specialized marketing agency targeting tech companies. She needed $50,000 to secure office space and hire her first employees. She presented spreadsheets, growth projections, and everything else she needed. I said, "I'm still thinking about it." "Okay, don't be too long. I have other interested investors." She pressed a button on her car's remote. "And maybe next time, enter Ethan in competitions with real standards." I watched her drive off, then went to look for my son. Ethan Gels was sitting on a bench near the stadium, and his trophy was lying next to him. I said as I sat down, "Hello, champion." "She's right, isn't she?" His voice trailed off. "My project wasn't that good. Your project was outstanding." The judging panel consisted of 3 university professors and 2 engineers. "And they chose you." But Aunt Melissa said. "Aunt Melissa doesn't know what she's talking about." I put my arm around him. "And you know what? I don't need her approval or anyone else's. I've worked hard. I've created something special, and I've earned this." He leaned on me, and we sat there until the parking lot cleared. That night, after Ethan had fallen asleep, I opened my laptop. I looked at the investment agreement Melissa had sent. $50,000 for a 15% stake in her company. I intended to sign it to help my sister, despite our complicated relationship. I remembered Ethan's face on that platform, my parents' laughter, and Melissa's complete lack of regret. I opened my email and began to type. "Melissa, after careful consideration, I have decided not to proceed with investing in your startup. I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Diane." I pressed send before I hesitated. The next morning began as usual. I made breakfast, got Ethan ready for school, and checked my email. Nothing from Melissa. No angry reply, no questions. Complete silence. At 9 o'clock in the evening, the doorbell rang. A postman stood there with a large craft paper envelope. "Diane Mitchell? This is me. Please sign here." I signed and took the envelope. It was heavy and had a formal appearance. I closed the door and opened it on my kitchen table. Inside were legal documents, the company's ownership papers. I began to read. At first, I was confused. Then I understood. Melissa's startup, which she had shown me, was hers alone. According to these documents, I owned 67% of it. My signature was on the incorporation papers, dated 8 months prior. I grabbed my phone and started scrolling through old emails. 8 months earlier, Melissa had sent me documents asking me to review and sign what she called partnership papers for a future project. I was preoccupied with Ethan's academic struggles at the time, so I quickly signed them, trusting my sister. She had founded the company, and I was the majority shareholder, without explicitly telling me. My phone rang. "Melissa, did you get the papers?" Her voice sounded nervous. "Yes, I did. Would you like to explain to me why I own most of your company's shares?" "Look, it was just for the purpose of applying for the bank loan. They wanted to see reputable investors. I would have bought your stake as soon as we got the funding. You made me the majority owner without telling me. It's just paperwork, Diane. Don't make a big deal out of it. Does the bank know that I'm the largest shareholder?" Silence. "Melissa, does the bank know? They believe you are an active investor who has agreed to the loan." I leaned back in my chair. Things were starting to become clear. She needed my investment to make her first loan payment. Without it, she would default. And as the majority shareholder, I would be responsible. I said slowly, "So, when you publicly humiliated my son yesterday, you didn't know that I had already decided not to invest." "What? Come on. This has nothing to do with business. It's all about that. I'm the majority owner, Melissa, and that means I make the decisions. You can't do that. I have clients ready and secure office space, using loan money that you can't repay without $50,000 from me." I opened the documents on my computer. According to these documents, any important business decision requires the approval of a majority of shareholders. And I am one of them. "Please, I'm your sister. I am sending you official documents today. As the majority shareholder, I exercise my right to review all business decisions. All client contracts require my approval. All expenses exceeding $500 require my signature. And the office lease you signed requires ratification by the majority shareholder. You're acting ridiculously. I am acting as a responsible employer. That is something you should have considered before forcing me to join your company." I heard her breathing heavily from the other end. "This is about yesterday, isn't it? It's about Ethan. It's about you making me the secret owner of the majority of your company's shares, and then treating my family with contempt. Actions have consequences, Melissa. I'll call my mom and dad. Go ahead. They cannot change the company's ownership documents." Then she hung up. 10 minutes later, my mother called. "Diane, what is this nonsense about you sabotaging your sister's work?" "I am not sabotaging anything. I am exercising my rights as the largest shareholder in a company that I was forced to own without proper disclosure." She said it was just a formality. Then she committed fraud, Mom. She used my name to get a business loan without my knowledge or consent. You're acting childishly because of what happened at Ethan's little party. His little party? He won a regional championship against 200 other students. He beat entries from private schools with open budgets. Melissa was simply being honest. The boy needs to learn how to handle criticism. There is a difference between constructive criticism and public humiliation. She grabbed the microphone at a school event to belittle a 12-year-old child. "I've always been very sensitive. We're just trying to prepare Ethan for the real world. And Melissa needs to learn that actions have consequences." She maintained a calm tone. "I own 67% of her company. She should have thought about that before she publicly humiliated my son. We raised you better than this. Family comes first. Families should treat each other with respect. Something you and Dad never understood about me and Ethan. You raised me to accept abuse. I'm sick of it." She hung up before she could reply. The next few days were utter chaos. Melissa sent dozens of emails, oscillating between apologies and threats. My parents called repeatedly. My father even came to my house, demanding I stop this childish revenge. I stood my ground. I hired a lawyer to review the company's documents. It turned out that Melissa hadn't just made me the majority shareholder. She'd been using my name on numerous loan applications. My credit history was tied to her company. If I had failed, I would have been burdened with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. The lawyer, a shrewd woman named Laura who specializes in business fraud cases, explained the entire case. 3 separate business loans, all listing me as the primary investor and largest owner. Melissa had even forged email correspondence to show that I was actively involved in the business decisions. "You have good reason to sue," Laura said, shuffling papers across her desk. "This is a clear case of identity theft for financial gain. Banks would be very interested to know that their loans were approved based on false information about investors." My lawyer sent Melissa a formal letter. She had to either buy my shares at fair market value, which she couldn't afford, or I would take over the company myself. She chose the third option. She called a family meeting. We met at a restaurant, Melissa, my parents, and me. Ethan was at a friend's house. Melissa Forglossy said, "You're destroying my dream. You ruined it yourself when you committed fraud using my identity." "It wasn't fraud. I signed the papers. You have altered some documents. My lawyer does not agree with your interpretation." The father leaned forward and said, "This is family, Diane. You can't hire a lawyer against your own family." You have made me legally responsible for a business transaction without my informed consent. This is exactly the time when you need a lawyer." The mother shook her head. All this because she expressed her opinion at a school event. No. All this because she committed fraud, publicly humiliated my child, and expected me to give her $50,000 without any consequences. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. I apologized to Ethan. I sent a text message saying, "I'm sorry if you felt offended. That's not an apology. What do you want from me?" I took out a file. "Here's what will happen. You will buy my share of the company for the value determined by my lawyer. You have 6 months to secure alternative financing. During this period, I retain the right to approve major decisions. You will also write a proper apology to Ethan, acknowledging that what you said was wrong and hurtful. I can't raise that kind of money in 6 months. Then you will have to be creative. Perhaps you should present your idea to the other investors you mentioned." "They don't exist," she admitted quietly. "You were my only real option. Then you should have treated me and my family with respect." My parents stared at me as if I were a stranger. My mother asked me, "When did you become so cold?" "I'm not cold-hearted. I'm just tired of being subservient." I stood up. "Melissa, you have until Friday to agree to these terms. Otherwise, my lawyer will file for full operational control of the company, and I'll run it myself." I left them sitting there. Friday arrived. Melissa signed the agreement. She had 6 months to buy out my stake. During this time, all business decisions were presented to me. The first thing I did was reject the expensive downtown office lease she had signed. The operating costs were too high for a startup. I found her a better location for half the price. Then I reviewed her clients' contracts. 2 of them were so undervalued they guaranteed losses. I renegotiated them. Within 3 months, the company was already profitable. Melissa hated being right, but she couldn't deny the numbers. She also wrote Ethan a heartfelt apology, 3 pages in her own handwriting, acknowledging her mistake and expressing how much she admired his achievement. Ethan kept the letter in his desk drawer. My parents stopped talking to me for 2 months. Finally, my dad called and said, "Your sister's work is going well." "I know that. I review the reports weekly. She says she might allow you to buy your stake early if you get the right funding and show stable earnings for 6 months. "Yes." He paused for a moment. "I didn't know she had forged those documents." "You didn't forge it. You forged its content. There's a difference, legally speaking." However, that wasn't true. That was the closest he came to admitting that I was right. No, that wasn't the case. And what she said to Ethan. "Your mother and I shouldn't have laughed." "No, you shouldn't have done that." Another silence. "Do you think we can attend his birthday party next month?" I thought about it. If I can treat him with the respect he deserves, yes, we can do that. 6 months later, Melissa secured funding from a trusted investor. She bought my share at the agreed price. The company was thriving thanks to the systems she had implemented. We were no longer close, and perhaps we never would be. But there was a new understanding. She knew I wouldn't tolerate any disrespect, and my parents knew their favoritism had its limits. Ethan placed his award on his desk. He was working on a new project related to water purification. When I asked him if he would like to enter it in next year's competition, he didn't hesitate. He said, "Absolutely. And Aunt Melissa can keep her opinions to herself." She smiled. "This is my son." Sometimes, standing up for yourself means standing alone. But seeing my son work on his project with confidence, knowing he has a mother who will protect him even from family, made every uncomfortable conversation worthwhile. The award ceremony changed everything, but not in the way my sister wanted.
सर्द लगता है दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दूर बढ़ता है अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं ये जो दिन सुहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा सर्द लगता है दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दर्द भरता है मेरे साए भी मुझसे अब जुदा होने को कहते हैं तुझे खोने की राहों में ये आंसू बहने लगते सितारों से भी पूछता है पता तेरा कहाँ होगा, मगर खामोश है दुनिया, कहाँ मेरा जहाँ होगा। बस एक बार मुड़ के देख ले मेरी बेबसी की सूरत, मुझे है आज भी तेरी वफा की सख्त जरूरत। साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर, साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर, दर्द का असर।